Shabbat Shalom, Moadim L'Simcha. This is Sukkot, the ultimate holiday of hospitality. Even if we may find ourselves alone in a sukkah, we are never alone. The tradition of welcoming ancestral guests, ushpizin, is a mystical or Kabbalistic tradition to remind us that no matter where we are always in the presence of the Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of the divine, and then to bring a measure of delight and closeness and reminder of the great Jewish family of which we are a part. Our sages, our more recent sages, the mystics, imagined a series of biblical guests who are with us, a different one each night in the Sukkah. Prior to reciting Kiddush and the associated blessing of sitting in the Sukkah, there is a small formula, almost like an incantation, that says, "Sit, sit, our exalted guests. Sit, sit, our holy guests. Sit, sit, our faithful guests. We invite you on this night to join us, bringing with you all of our holy guests." And we invite. Traditionally, in the order of the days, we welcome Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, and David. And in the last number of years, I'm grateful that the tradition has expanded to not just include ushpizin, but ushpizot as well. We welcome Sarah, Miriam, Deborah, and Hannah, Abigail, Huldah, and Esther. Sarah, interestingly, standing in for all of the matriarchs, and then expanding the tradition to include a couple of women we might not know as well. Sarah, Miriam, Deborah, Hannah, perhaps we know very well, certainly Esther. But Abigail, just a brief reminder, her story appears in the book of 1 Samuel. She is first married to a man named Nabal, and when David, who is not yet the king of Israel, travels to their tribal area and actually asks Nabal for hospitality. Speaking of hospitality, Nabal refuses, by the way, and David prepares to attack him. But Abigail placates David. She brings food and drink, asks him to spare her husband, and to leap forward in the story, after Nabal's death, Abigail becomes one of the wives of David. That's for later on in the year. We can look more at Abigail's story. But Huldah is also a prophetess who validates a scroll of the law found in the temple during the time of King Josiah. So we jump several centuries ahead to the mid-7th century before the Common Era. King Josiah, one of the very few kings considered to be a good or righteous king in that era. We're very honest about the great failures of our leaders throughout Jewish history, something we might all take to heart, to be very reflective about the nature of our leaders and always demand better from them, but remember that they are human. So King Josiah sends his emissaries to Huldah, to a female prophetess, to ask if a scroll that they found is authentic. And she does affirm it. So we see from that little bitty story that's just plopped into the book of 2 Kings, chapter 22, that prophecy was a role practiced by women in antiquity. So these few women who are considered great prophetesses are also welcomed into our sukkah, one for each night. They're wonderful seeds for conversation, for study, and for just further thought about who we might wish to welcome into our sukkah. This year, many of us are, of course, struggling very much with Zman Simchatenu, a theme we've been talking about. Zman Simchatenu means our time of joy, and our hearts as a Jewish people feel as fragile as the Sukkah itself this year. So some very wise people have offered, already we're into Sukkot, we're already coming to the fourth night, but if you'd like to just harness these ideas of the spirits of sweet people, good, innocent people that we might wish to just hold in our sukkah with us on the remaining nights, or you can certainly group them together. That's a very common practice. So here is a suggestion, very much in our modern time, this particular moment in Jewish history, that we might welcome the spirits of those currently held hostage and being held captive. We might pray for all of those and welcome their spirits in, all of those who were murdered on October 7th last year. We might think of all of those who bravely stepped forward as first responders, bringing hope and healing along their path and sometimes losing their lives in the process. We might think of all of the soldiers who have stepped up to fight for justice, complicated and messy as this is, and to try to bring home the beloved captives. We might welcome all of those who have provided aid around the world, supporting the suffering and bringing care at each step. So much care and well-wish and support has flown in from all over the world, and it needs to get to all of the right people. We might, on a different night, think of all of the children whose lives have been interrupted, whose schools and families are far from normalcy. And perhaps on the final night of Sukkot, we would think of all of the innocent people caught amidst violence they do not deserve, understand, nor desire. And then we can conclude each night with, we invite you here with us under our Sukkot Shalom, under our shelter of peace. However you choose to welcome some guests, I think we also all need a lot of personal healing this Sukkot. Sukkot is such a holiday of salve. It's really a holiday of salvation. And we're going to sing some verses of Hoshana in a couple of minutes that literally say, save us, please. We need to be saved. And we can start with that for ourselves by giving ourselves a sense of comfort, a sense of the kind of visitors that we might like to receive for our own well-being. So I'd like to close today with a lovely poem by a very sweet artist named Talia Hunter. And this is to remind ourselves in quiet times when our hearts need some care and we need to give ourselves the TLC that we all need, absolutely, and deserve. We might think of some of these visitors. Talia Hunter writes, "Patience visited me, and it reminded me that good things take time to come to fruition and grow slowly with stability. Peace visited me, and it reminded me that I can remain calm through the storms of life, regardless of the chaos surrounding me. Hope visited me, and it reminded me that better times lay ahead, and that it would always be there to guide and uplift me. Humility visited me, and it reminded me that I may achieve it, not by trying to shrink myself and make myself less, but by focusing on serving the world and lifting up those who are around me. Kindness visited me, and it reminded me to be more gentle, forgiving, and compassionate toward myself and those around me. Confidence visited me, and it reminded me not to conceal or suppress my gifts and talents in order to make others feel more comfortable, but to embrace what makes me, me. Focus visited me, and it reminded me that other people's insecurities and judgments about me are not my problem, and I should redirect my attention from others back to myself. Freedom visited me, and it reminded me that no one has control over my thoughts, my mindset, and my well-being but myself. And finally, love visited me, and it reminded me that I need not search for it only in others, as it lies always within my own heart. Whoever comes to visit you in your sukkah, may it be indeed a time of rejoicing. Shabbat Shalom.